Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again with another video on Superman and Lois Season 2, and this is going to be my review for Episode 4 for this season, otherwise entitled The Inverse Method. Yeah. But of course, spoiler alert, if you've not watched the episode, go away, because some interesting things happen in a couple of different areas and a couple of different storylines throughout this season. So yeah, go away if you've not watched it. If you have watched the episode, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your general opinions, thoughts, reactions and predictions going forward from this episode. Always curious to read what you guys are thinking. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video and you enjoyed the episode, why not drop a like on the video to show that. So last episode, just to keep it pretty much clean in regards to, we'll go 3 storylines. We had Jonathan finding out about the whole ex-kryptonite situation. That's what's sort of allowing people to have some extra abilities and seem a bit more, well, a bit better than they actually are, if you know what I mean. And he doesn't seem completely opposed to it. He seems, sort of tempted by it. We also do get the setup for the Lucy Lane stuff in this episode, where she sort of turned on Lois, and Lois sort of has to deal with that. Otherwise, her career could be affected in more ways than one. And of course, we did get the big reveal of Doomsday. Not Doomsday. It was actually Bizarro, but they baited and switched us so well. Like, incredibly well. It was just a bamboozlement of the mind, and it's just insane, and it continues on to this episode with some interesting revelations. Now, just quickly before we jump into the actual review and breakdown for this episode, the show goes on break for, I think it's 2 weeks without episodes, but it's actually sort of 3 weeks, because you get 1 week without an episode, another week without an episode, and then you have to wait another week for that episode to come out. So a 3-week break, pretty much, just due to the Winter Olympics. A bit annoying because there's no other shows on as well. But yeah, just to let everyone know so you don't tune in next week and like, well, where's Superman and Lois? I think they were replaying the first 2 episodes of the season over the next 2 weeks. So just to let everyone know, they're on break after this episode. But yeah, as I sort of said heading into this video, this episode deals with a good amount of storylines, setting some up like completely new, or at least branching off from storylines to be something completely new, and of course just continuing stuff either set up earlier in the season or last episode. And there was no really weak points in this episode. I think I actually nailed it. But to be honest, I'm not sure if I'm the only one that felt like this. I wonder if they knew that they were going to have a break, because this almost felt like it could have been like a mini mid-season finale. Like, you have like certain things happen at the end which leave you on a bit of suspense, and they set up some other stuff which, it almost felt like a bit of a mid-season finale, or they knew that they were going on a break. So I don't know, it felt that way to me at the very least. But to start off this episode, we do flash back to the last time that Lucy stayed with Lois. Obviously, this was in their old place. At first, I thought it was one of those weird, like, flash forward moments that you get in episodes sometimes. Because, like, is this room from the Smallville house or the Kent farm? But I was like, no, it's from Metropolis. But yeah, we flash back to that time, and Lucy just feels uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable being around Lois and her family, her perfect family, and, her perfect life, with Lucy leaving to reconnect with Ali, the leader of this inverse society. Who we of course saw meet Lois at the end of at the diner at the end of last episode, and that's when we meet up again with that, after we leave this flashback scene. Now, Lois definitely gives Ali some of her opinions, to put it lightly, but Ali has the usual cover-ups you would expect from someone like her and someone in that position. But of course, Ali has somewhat of an upper hand with Lucy being back alongside her, and that podcast thing happening, and even just, you can just see the amount of control she has. Like, everyone in that diner was a part of her society. Pretty crazy. Like, this is even like more control than Morgan Edge to an extent last season. But we know Lois doesn't fold easily, so you just knew it was going to be an interesting road from that point. And where it was going, I wasn't too sure, but I was definitely along for the ride. Now, of course, as I said, we got the big reveal last episode of Bizarro, and we do pick up with Bizarro trying to destroy the necklace. Now, what the necklace is, I don't know. That doesn't get explained in this episode, but some interesting stuff happens with it, so I'm sure when we, come back from this break, we'll find out. But we do get to see, just like how Clark would see what Bizarro was seeing when he has those visions, Bizarro sees what Clark sees, which makes sense if you think about it. But when we go back to the Kent farm, we have that podcast being released and Lois listening to it, where Lucy, might I say, accuses Lois of constructing the narrative and changing things around to put Ali in like as worst light as possible, but along with that, putting Lucy in a pretty bad light as well. And this just convinces Lois that Lucy has fully left the building, if you know what I mean. There's it's going to be hard to bring her back. Now, Bizarro does arrive at the Kent farm shortly after this, but at least at the moment, we know Clark gets a warning when Bizarro is approaching, though it would also be the same in case Clark plans an attack, which we sort of get at the end of the episode, or at least if Clark is approaching Bizarro. Anyway, but Bizarro fights, I guess you'd call it a fight. It was just a lot of like I don't know, like a wrestling match. It was a bit weird, but they quote unquote fight. And Bizarro's necklace appeared to be like draining something from Clark. Like, we don't know what it is specifically, and I'm sure we'll find out in later episodes, you'd have to think, but I don't really know what was going on. Was he draining his power? Was he draining, I don't know, his, like, so Bizarro becomes Clark, like Bizarro gains, I don't know what it was specifically. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments section down below, but I'm sure that's going to be a plot point moving forward in this season, or at least the the first half of this season. Now, Chrissy plays a pretty big role in this episode, which did surprise me because I don't think she's had like a massive thing on the show. Like, she definitely plays her part, but she just feels like Lois's sidekick for the most part. But some interesting stuff happens with her, and I'm intrigued to see where it goes going forward. But Chrissy goes on to the dark web to do some sleuthing, if you want to call it, under an alias, and ends up being invited to one of Ali's Inverse Society meetings. So we're now going on a road trip with Lois and Chrissy. Now, with what happens later in the episode, I do wonder whether Ali knew that was Chrissy that she was sending the invite to anyway. Like, if you're on the dark web, I guess if you don't have the right, like, VPNs, proxies, whatever it is, whatever the technological computer talk is, like, they would know who you are from the get-go. I'm not too sure, but just seemed very coincidental, but obviously could just be very intentional at the same time. Now, as I said at the beginning of the episode, like recapping what previously happened, in the season, Jonathan with the whole X-Kryptonite thing. So he's still with his girlfriend Candace, who's the dealer for the X-Kryptonite stuff, which was a bit of a reveal last episode. But she explains more about what X-Kryptonite does when you take it, and it appears that certain people get different abilities, so strength, super hearing, super focus, just general awareness, healing, whatever it might be. But speaking of powers, while in a grocery store, Jordan uses his powers in order to not only sense, but also stop some shoplifters by using his ice breath or freeze breath on the floor to make them slip over. However, the store has surveillance cameras, so I was like, uh-oh, what's going to happen here? Is Jordan about to get exposed? But luckily for Jordan, this actually leads into something later in the episode, Sam Lane, his granddad of course, was able to scramble the footage thanks to his time with the DoD, while also giving Jordan some pointers for staying aware. Now, I wasn't exactly sure, didn't actually really think this was the way they were going when that happened with Jordan. I was like, oh, is he going to get exposed? Is, you're going to have to break the surveillance camera and it's in his friend's, family's store? Like, what's going on here? But I do like the way that they planted this and then veered off in the direction they're going later in the episode. Now, John Henry, or Steele, is able to get a breakdown of what's going on with that necklace that was messing with Superman while fighting Bizarro, but the only place where they might be able to get a reading and sort of trace that necklace is, of course, the DoD, of course. But though Lieutenant Anderson would love the intel, I guess it's just an advantage and can progress him in stopping what he needs to stop, he doesn't want Superman involved. But Superman doesn't want them involved for the most part. He wants it the other way around. Just him out there, no one else at risk. And Superman sort of gets proved right later in the episode. But of course, Lieutenant Mitch Anderson is going to be a bit stubborn and go on his own direction, if you know what I mean. Now, Chrissy in disguise enters the Dragon's Den, if you want to call it, as she goes into the Inverse Society seminar. And I was getting a feeling that Chrissy was getting sucked into it all. But at that time in the episode, or at that moment, she instead just gets called out pretty early by Ali that, oh, hello, Chrissy, welcome to the seminar. But meanwhile, back in Smallville, Jonathan takes X-Kryptonite at football practice, and it was cool sort of like seeing the powers open up to him like that. And it's different than what we had with Jordan last season, which was a bit more scary. Like, it was like he didn't want this stuff. It was just like it was genetically coming through him, and it was a bit more scary and unexpected. But Jonathan in this case, when he took it at football practice, just like an inhaler, like some Ventolin, it was brought on by himself, and it was done in a more cool way, just like his senses opening up. But he one-ups Ryan, the other quarterback. Now I was thinking, is this just because he just took the X-Kryptonite, so it's more fresh? Or is it because Jonathan had the already natural talent, and then he takes the X-Kryptonite as well? So it's just, they're on the same, it's pretty much as if both of them hadn't taken it, if that makes sense. But because Jonathan was already better, he's also better with the X kryptonite. That's the way I saw it at the very least. But back at the old seminar with the Inverse Society, Lois runs into Lucy, which I thought it might have been a bit more of an awkward confrontation at first, but it just sort of, it wasn't as awkward as it could have been. But the two go on to have a conversation, if you want to call it, a conversation of sorts. And it sort of replicated the opening flashback scene, even like the way they were positioned and everything like that, with Lucy feeling that Lois's article did the opposite of what she intended. It wasn't saving Lucy, it wasn't saving Lucy in any way. It ruined Lucy. It took everything away from her because at that point, really, the Inverse Society was all that Lucy had. And she swears to Lois that she will never come back. Now, I honestly thought heading into this episode that Lucy was coming to Smallville. I honestly thought Lucy was coming back to Smallville in this episode, but that's not the case. So I'm incredibly curious to see what this storyline is, where it leads, what happens with Lucy, what happens with Lois, what happens with everyone involved, because they do constantly mention that Ali is a parasite, and she is a version of Parasite from the comics. Now, I don't know if they're going to literally make her a parasite being with all the absorption abilities that she has, but they might be just doing like a sort of like a representation of that, where instead of like actually absorbing people's energy and making them crumble to dust, if you want to call it, and all of that, she just absorbs people in the way she's doing with this like cult society thing. I think that's the way that they're going, and that's the way they're representing it, which I think is an interesting take. But of course, we're only 4 episodes into the season. We've still got a long way to go, especially if this goes till the end of the season, this storyline. So there could be a lot of twists and turns to come. But along with this whole thing of not necessarily knowing where they're going to go with this storyline, that's a good thing. You want to be surprised. One thing I wasn't expecting was Lois getting exposed through the spy cam that was set up by Lucy, and I would assume Ali as well, with Chrissy and the entire seminar also hearing it as well, which would just support Ali in regards to everyone else in that seminar. So maybe this road trip wasn't the best idea. I think Lois definitely fell into Ali's hands by tagging along and going along with this. Now, throughout the episode, we learned that Mayor Dean, who Lana is going up against for the race for mayor, is potentially using some dirty tactics by digging not only Lana's past, but also her family's, which includes, what Sarah went through a few years ago and her mental health issues and everything like that, which I personally think is a weird tactic. Like, I don't know, would that slide? I don't know. But the world's a weird place and people fall for tactics like that more than they should. I don't know if really going, hey, your daughter tried to kill herself. Haha, like, that's weird. But I don't know, people would maybe go along with that. But I have a feeling Kyle will lose his cool and maybe knock that dude's block off. I sort of want him to, but in regards to Kyle, we also see that he has some baggage of his own and secrets that he would not want out there. So Kyle's also stuck in a sticky position as well, and he probably knows that Mayor Dean has some dirt on him. So yeah, walking on thin ice most likely, which would not only ruin Lana's mayoral race, but also just his family and their relationship, and probably ended in divorce. So who knows what's going to happen there. Now, the big moment in this episode is when the DOD gains a reading on Bizarro. So Mitch Anderson, or Lieutenant Anderson, sends out his Superman, including Tag Harris, with Bizarro sort of like chilling out in Bolivia, I think it was. But of course, due to the visions, Clark does see what Bizarro sees as well, with Clark seeing the Superman there, but also seeing Bizarro kill 2 of them, just choking them, snapping their necks, but not Tag Harris. He's the one that's left, with Superman arriving just in time to save Tag, but Tag Harris leaves with the necklace. So that's gone. That's most likely back with the DOD, which allows the two of Superman and Bizarro to fight without that draining thing happening from the necklace. Now, it seems that Superman has the upper hand for the most part, but Bizarro does injure John Henry in the already damaged steel suit, with John's brain being injured in the process, leading him to going to hospital, and Natalie, of course, being distraught and not happy at all with Superman. So I was wondering if there was going to be any tension between the two, but maybe because, her father was sweet with Superman, it was all good. But maybe because, Superman allowed that, quote unquote, allowed that to happen to her father, there's going to be some tension there. Now, of course, as I said, that necklace, I'm assuming next episode or the episode after we'll learn more about it. But I wonder if Bizarro can sense where the necklace is, which might take him to the DOD. Not too sure. And I wonder why specifically Bolivia. Is Bolivia like on the opposite side? I don't know, if you like dug through, would Bolivia be on the opposite end of the world? No, it wouldn't, because Bolivia's in South America, so it wouldn't be. Unless Bolivia's in the same sort of, like, if you folded South America and up to North America, Smallville and Bolivia would be in the same spot. I don't know. I don't know what it would be like, but I don't know. Is there a specific reason he's in Bolivia? We might find out. Actually, it would be because he was in, was it because he was in the salt and salt melts ice? That might be what it was, because it looked like it was a salt field. Like what do you call it? Like the salt plains. So maybe that's what was going on there. I don't know. I'm just theorizing in my head what was going on, why he was in Bolivia. But speaking of super people, we have Jordan approaching his grandfather to get help with training his powers in order to help his father Superman. But of course, Clark wouldn't be, I think, overly on board with this at the moment, and he has his hands pretty much full with what's going on at the moment with Bizarro and everything like that. So going and approaching his grandfather is the best way, especially when he gave him tips early in the episode with the whole surveillance camera thing and all of that. So I think this is going to be an interesting storyline to follow, and I wonder how quickly Jordan's powers will progress, because they progressed without help too much on their own. Like, he can control them pretty well as well. So maybe it might be things like learning to fly potentially. But yeah, that's a wait and find out. But to finish the episode off, we do see Lois looking back again on her actions and experiences with Lucy and desperately trying to get through to Chrissy. But we then see Chrissy just ignoring Lois, trying to get through to her, going like, nope, not answering that phone call. You can talk to my voicemail. And instead she rings Allie and wants her to reveal all about Lois. Now, I do wonder whether this is going to be like, Allie's like, well, I'll tell you stuff, but, you know, I'm going to drag you deeper and deeper and deeper and further and further and further into my inverse society. Potentially. That might be what's going on there. Now, I definitely didn't see this twist in the story coming about heading into this episode, but I don't know. It seems like a lot of stuff is just folding in on Lois and also Clark as well. Like, these two different storylines are definitely affecting our two leading characters in very, very similar ways, which as I said, didn't expect it going into this episode, especially on the Lois side of things. But yeah, guys, as I said, this episode, I think, pretty much nailed it. I don't think I disliked anything in the episode. I think it nailed what it needed to do. I don't really have any negative things to say. I can't think of anything at the very least. It's definitely got me intrigued for various storylines. And some might argue like maybe like the Jordan working with his dad sort of thing, but so with his grandfather, might I say. But I don't know if you can really comment on that too much until it actually starts to play out. I don't know. I think unless like Jordan gets in like danger and almost dies or something, and his grandfather's like, no, let's keep going. Maybe that could be a criticism, but that's for us to wait and find out. I don't know if you can really knock it down as of yet. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome. You could drop a like on it, show your support, especially if you enjoyed the episode as well. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on all of this. What you love, what you hate maybe, different theories going forward. Let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.